Record. There we go.
Your tests. A boy 9 years old and 1 day old who cohabitated with a Yevama and then, after reaching adulthood, he married another woman and died. If he was not intimate with the first one after reaching adulthood, the first one performs chalitza but may not be taken in Yibum. While the second one may either perform chalitza or be taken in Yibum, Reb Shimon says he may perform Yibum with whichever he prefers and must then perform chalitza with the other one. It is the same whether he is aged 9 years old, 9 years and 1 day, or age 20 and has not grown 2 hairs. A man may marry the relatives of the woman he raped or seduced. If he rapes or seduces her relatives after he married her, he is liable. A man may marry the woman raped or seduced by his father, or the woman raped by seduced by his son. And Rabbi Yehuda permits the woman raped or seduced by his father. A woman's son is converted with her. They perform neither chalitza nor yibum, even if the first was not conceived in sanctity, but was born in sanctity, and the second was conceived and born in sanctity. So too in the case of a slave woman whose son was emancipated with her. Okay.
Okay, Chamesh Nashim. You have five women. Shenisarvu Valdosen. Okay, so we're talking about some pretty wild hypotheticals today. Okay, what have we got? We got five women who all had sons from the same man. This is something that's kind of unwritten. Okay. But they have other children who they ended up somehow mixing up all their five children who were born around the same time. Not the brothers though. These are they all were all these women were originally, well, you could take the story in either direction. Let's tell the story like this. Five women were married to five men, and their children all got mixed up among themselves. Okay, so now we don't know whose child belongs to whose woman. We don't have any DNA testing, and they all come home, and they subsequently all have arguments about their husbands about is this actually my child? Is this not? And the husbands all get angry with them and divorce them. So then there's one guy who says, you know what? I'm a nice guy. I'm gonna marry all these five women because I don't care if they're not my children or not. And he marries them all, and they all have sons from him. Wait, can this be? Oh, hang on. I'm not sure if I've told the story right. Let's just see again. Okay, let's just go ahead with the story. Higdilu Hatarovis. So all of these guys grew up and they married women. Uh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, let's start again. Start again. I've got the story is obviously wrong. Okay, these women, these five women, um, were all married and they stayed married. Okay, never mind. Okay, so they all stayed married to their original husbands, and they all had other sons from their respective husbands. But this one batch of five kids got all mixed up. So in each family, there's one child who's a suffix whether he's part of that family or not. Okay, sorry. So I got the original story mixed up. There are five husbands over here, five wives, and lots of boys. But five of those boys are in a mixed up status. Okay. Higdila Tarovis. So they all grew up and they married women, and the boys who were all mixed up. They went out on a wild party on the town and were DUI and had an accident and all died. Okay. Now they don't have any children and they're all married and we don't know whose brothers they are, but we do know that they are at least from those five families. Okay. So how do we deal with them? Because you've got five different families who might actually be their brothers. So what do they do? Arba'a cholzin. So one brother from each of four families comes and does chalitza with the widow, and the fifth one can then do yibum. Because mima nafshach, if he is actually the brother, then he's doing the mitzvah of yibum now. And if he's not the brother, then somebody else is the brother and already did chalitza, so he can just marry her as an unrelated woman. Okay. And then he v'achar ve'echad miyaveimotav. Hu ushlosha cholzin lacheres. And so then he and three of his other friends can do chalitza to the next widow, and then he can and then another brother can do yibum with that one. Okay, ואחד מייבם. נמצאו ארבע חליצות ויבום לכל אחת ואחת. By the way, it would also work if the same guy decided he wanted to marry all five widows.
Hmm.
But we're just telling the story that you could split the widows five ways among all of the brothers. But it could technically also be one guy who does yibum on all of them after everyone else does chalitza to them. Okay, next crazy situation. Isha shenisara vlada vlad kalasa. Okay, so a woman and her daughter-in-law are both pregnant at the same time. They're both going to give birth together, and their babies get mixed up. So you've got an uncle and a nephew, and we don't know who's who. Okay. Higdilu hatarovis. They grew up and they married women. And uncle and nephew, who obviously were best of friends, were involved in a car crash, and now they're both dead. And now we have two widows. Now, what do we do with Yibum and Chalitza? Okay, so background information over here is that it is usher to marry your uncle's wife. That's an erva.
Right.
Okay, but marrying your nephew's wife is mutar. Okay, so. So you can tell what the halacha is going to be over here. So Bnei Hakala, so the sons of the daughter-in-law. So in other words, all the other brothers who are nephews, um, they have to do chalitza. They may not do yibum because they might come to marry their uncle's wife, which is aser. Okay, she was safek eshes achiv safek eshes achi aviv. Bnei Zakena, but the brothers of the mother-in-law, or cholzin or miyabmin, they can either do chalitza or yibum as they choose, because either way, it will once the initial chalitza has been done, she's either going to be the brother's wife, which in which case it's the mitzvah of yibum, or it's going to be the nephew's wife who's already had a chalitza, which is also mutar. Shu safek aishis achiv aishis ben achiv. Mesuha kasherim. Now, what happens if it's the other way? If the reverse thing happens now, and a brother of the uncle and a brother of the nephew died. So now that the tarovet is left alive, the two guys who are in a suffix status. So now each of them has got a suffix. Am I his brother or am I his nephew? Am I his brother or am I his uncle? Okay. So, Mesu HaKeshem, B'nai HaTaroves, Livnei HaZekena. So, what do these two guys do? To the sons of the older woman, Cholzin v'lo miyabmin. They cannot do yibum to them because there's a suffix that he might actually be the uncle's wife. In which case, they both have to do chalitza to her. Um, שהוא ספק אשת אחיו אשת אחי אביו. ובני הקלה, but the daughter-in-law's brother, the daughter-in-law's other sons, אחד חולץ, אחד מייבם. One can do chalitz and then the other can do yibum because once again you have that same safek. If it's his brother, then he's done yibum, and if it's his nephew's son, then that's fine. And if it's his nephew's wife, then that's also fine. Okay.
It's a good thing they didn't have the Me Too movement at this time.
Hmm.
Wouldn't work so well.
Am I? Okay. Ready for another baby swap. Kohenes. Shenis arif vlada bevlad shifchasa. So the wife of a Kohen is pregnant at the same time as her Canaanite slave girl. Now, remember a Canaanite slave of a Kohen is property of the Kohen and is therefore allowed to eat truma.
Right.
So he's got all the privilege. He's got some of the privileges of kahuna, but he's not a Kohen. Okay. So now these two kids get mixed up at birth, and we don't know which one is the Kohen and which one is the Eved. Okay. Hare elu ochlim b'truma. Well, both of them can eat truma. B'cholkim chelik echad b'gorin. And if they go to the threshing floor to receive truma, they only get one portion between the two of them because the farmer can say, "Listen, I give truma to Kohanim. I don't give truma to slaves of Kohanim." But they say, "Well,
Right.
one of us is a Kohen." I say, "Okay, fine. One portion for you guys." Okay. But Einan mitamin lamesim. They may not become tame because even though an Eved is allowed to become tame, but the Kohen's not. So and neither of them knows which one. So you have to be. So this is a mitzvah doraisa. Misafek, both of them have to treat themselves as if they're fully fledged Kohanim. Ve'ein nosim nashim, bein kesheros, bein psulos, and neither of them may marry at all because the Kohen would be allowed to marry somebody, but an Eved is not allowed to marry a Yisraelis. Okay, so this is clearly a problem. And as soon as you see ein nosim nashim, that they're not allowed to marry at all, you're immediately going to see in such a situation we're going to force them to free each other. Okay, because we cannot allow somebody to grow up and be unable to marry. Okay, so the Beit Din is going to come and say Higdila Tarovis v'shichruru zeh zeh. So the phrasing of the Mishnah makes it sound as if well they decided that it's better if we do. The Beit Din will actually force them to do it, but they freed each other. So now we have a situation where one of them is a Kohen and one of them is an Eved Meshuchrar, which is a full Jew, but he's got and not a Kohen at all, uh, yeah, he's basically got the status of a convert. Okay. And so now, nos in nashim re'uis lekohana. They have to marry women who are worthy of kohana. Even though one of them is a convert, they still have to marry women who are worthy of kohana. He cannot marry another convert because he might be the kohen. The Einan mitamin lemeisim, all of the stringencies of the kohenim basically, they may not become tame. The im nitamu, and if they became tame, Ein Sofkin Issa Arbaim. But for becoming Tame, they don't get lashes because you can't prove which one of them is actually deserving of lashes because one of them is just is mutter to become Tame. The Einan Ochlim but Truma, and neither of them now may eat Truma. The Im Achlu Einan Mishalin Kerim Chomesh. But if they did eat, they don't pay any monetary damages because you can't because monetary damages, the Keren V'chomesh, have to be proven. And you'll say, well, maybe I'm the Kohen.
Right. Right. Okay.
Einan Cholkin ala Gorin. They do not get a portion of the Gorin. The farmers will say, no, one of you is not allowed to eat this, so I'm not giving you anything. Okay. Mochrin is because mochrin is a truma. If they have truma, then they're allowed to sell it, of course. They must sell it, in fact. V'hadamim shaleim, but they keep the money. Einam cholkim b'kodshei mikdash, and they cannot have any share of the kodshim of the mikdash, even though one of them is supposed to be serving in the mikdash. They don't get any. They don't get any share of it. Ve'ein nosnin lahim kodshim, and you may not give them kodshim. Ve'ein motziim shelahem miyadam, but if they have kodshim in their hands, you cannot force them to give it up, because. But they could. I don't know if they would be allowed to sell the right to other kohanim. Um, see. Oh, so they can give them as a gift to any other Kohen who's on the Mishmar. They can't sell them. U'paturin min hazra u'min halechayayim min hakeva. So the gifts from a chulin animal, the foreleg, the jaw, and the maw, are the gifts that they normally have to give to the Kohanim. They can give to themselves. They say, I'm not giving it to anyone because Kimli, maybe I'm the Kohen, so I don't. So it's a mandatory obligation. So you cannot force him to give it to anyone. Ubechoro yehei ro'eh ad sheyistayev, and if he has a bechor, let it graze until it develops a mum. V'nosnin alav, it gets a mum and then he eats it as chulin. He doesn't have to give it to the Kohen at all. V'nosnin alav chumrei kohanim v'chumrei Yisraelim. So all of the chumras that apply to Kohanim apply to both of them, and all of the chumras that apply to Yisraelim apply to both of them. So that's the case of the mixed up Kohen and Eved. All
Uh,
right. Sign
uh,
Vav.
let me see where you have. Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. Vav Zion. No, Zion's Vav. The Cohen Gadol sometimes disqualifies. How so? If a Cohen's daughter was married to a Yisrael and bore him a daughter, and the daughter went and married a Kohen and bore him a son, he is qualified to be a Kohen Gadol and then stand and serve at the altar. He entitles his mother to eat truma, but disqualifies his mother's mother. To this she says, "Let others not be like my son, the Kohen Gadol, who disqualifies me from truma." Okay. Okay, that takes care of this one over here. Okay, and now we're going to Yoma.
No, we're on to the second half of Yevamos.
Wait a second, I missed something up. Second half of Yevamos.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be Yud Aleph Beit Gimel.
Wait, no.
No, that we just did that. No, we were going to do that.
Yeah, we're in Ches Aleph, right at the beginning. Go to the beginning of the volume.
Yes. Oh, I don't see this. Kiss Dalid.
Ches Aleph.
Aleph. Kiss Aleph. Kiss Aleph. Okay. Oh, right here. The first one.
Yes.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. I don't have a thing there. Okay. Um, okay. The uncircumcised and all those who are tamei may not eat truma, but their wives and slaves may eat truma. One with mutilated testicles and one whose phallus was severed, and they and their slaves may eat, but their wives may not eat. However, if he did not cohabitate with her after his testicles were mutilated or his phallus was severed, he may eat. Who is considered someone with mutilated testicles? Anyone whose testicles were cut, even if only one of them. And who is considered a person whose phallus was severed? Anyone whose phallus was cut off. However, even if a hair's breadth of the corona remained, it's fit. Persons with mutilated testicles or a severed phallus are permitted to marry a convert or an emancipated slave woman. They're forbidden only to enter into the congregation as it is stated. A person with mutilated testicles or a severed phallus may not enter the congregation of God.
And that's it.
That's it. Okay. All right. I got to put this in here. And I just mess something up over here. I'll have to fix it up later. Okay. Moa cotton. Okay. Base. Similarly, one whose wine was in the vat and then mourning befell him, or an accident befell him, or his workers misled him, may pour the wine into the barrels to complete the processing and seal the barrels in his usual manner. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda says he may cover the barrels with boards so that the wine does not sour. A person may bring in his fruit because of thieves and remove his flax from the soaking pond so that it does not become ruined, provided he does not plan to work for Kol Moed. In all these cases, if he planned to work for Kol Moed, it is for forfeited. We may not purchase homes, nor slaves, nor domestic animals except for use during the festival, or provide for the needs of the seller who otherwise has nothing to eat. We may not move objects from one house to another, but may move objects from one house. I'm sorry, we may not move objects from one house to another, but one may move objects from one house to another within his courtyard. We may not bring vessels from the artisan's shop, but if one fears for them, he may move them into a different courtyard. Okay. Shalom.
Okay, Shkalim, yeah.
There we go. The limits of the daily offering were placed on the lower half of the ramp on the western side. Those of the additional offerings were placed on the lower half of the ramp on the eastern side. And those of the additional offerings of Rosh Chodesh were placed on the ramp below the karka of the altar. And the mitzvahs of Skolem and the first fruits apply only to the temple era, but the grain tithe, the animal tithe, and the laws regarding the firstborn animals apply both in the temple era and the post-temple era. If one consecrates Skolem or first fruits, they are consecrated. And Shimon says if one consecrates first fruits, they are not consecrated. Okay,
Shkalim, Yoma.
Okay. 7 days before Yom Kippur, they sequestered the Kohen Gadol from his house to the official's chamber, and they prepare another Kohen to serve as a substitute, lest he become disqualified. The Yehuda says they also prepare another wife for him, lest his wife die, for it is said, and he shall make atonement for himself and his house, that is his wife. They said to him, if so, there is no end to the matter. Of all of these 7 days, he throws the blood, burns the incense, prepares the lamps, offers the head and the hind leg. On all other days of the year, he wishes to offer any sacrifice, he may offer it. For the Kohen, Gadol has the first right to offer and the first right to take a portion. They provide him sages from among the sages of the court who read to him
No,
on
that's
that.
it. We're done. Just
Oh,
two,
no,
just two from Yoma.
okay. Okay. Um, Go. Come on. Okay. Shvius. Um, Let me see. If one says to a laborer, if one says to a laborer, here is an issa for you, and gather vegetables for me today, his payment is permitted. Gather me for vegetables for it today, which his payment is forbidden. If one took the baker with a loaf of worth of punyan, when I have gathered field vegetables, I shall bring you. It is permitted if he took from him without making any comment. They may not pay from the proceeds of the seventh year, since one may not settle the debt with the 7 year proceeds. One may not give a well digger, a bath attendant, a barber, or a sailor, but one may give a well digger to drink. And to all one may give a gift. Figs of the seventh year may not be laid out on a drying floor, but may be laid out on an empty site. One may not tread grapes in a wine press, but one may tread them in a kneading trough. And one may not crush olives in an olive press or in an olive crusher, but he may crush them and put them into a small olive press. Reb Shimon says he may even grind them in an olive press and put them into a small olive press. Okay, and we are now Caleb. Similarly, if a piece of cloth that was woven to the size of 3 fingerbreadths by 3 fingerbreadths contracted corpse tumor, and subsequently one finished the whole piece of cloth, and afterward one thread was removed from the original cloth, it becomes tahor from corpse tumor, but is tame due to contact with a tay mitzvah, mace. If one thread was removed from the original cloth, and subsequently one finished the whole piece of cloth, it is tahor. Because the sages said, if a piece measuring 3 fingerbreadths by 3 fingerbreadths is lessened, it is tahor. But if a piece measuring 3 fingerbreadths by 3 fingerbreadths is lessened, even though it is not susceptible to midrash tumah, it is still susceptible to all the forms of tumah. Concerning a sheet that contracted midrash tumah and was then made into a curtain, it becomes tahor for midrash tumah, but it is tameh due to contact with a midrash. Rabbi Yossi says, why is the midrash why which midrash did the sheet touch? Rather, a contact tumah only if the zav himself touches it, rendering it tameh on account of the zav's touching. If a cloth that is 3 handbreadths by 3 handbreadths was divided, each half is tahor from midrash tumah, but it's tameh due to contact with a midrash. Rabbi Yossi says, why? Which midrash did this cloth touch? Rather, each half is tameh only if this half himself touched the garment, rendering it tameh on account of the zav's touching. Okay. And we are into Shiyus. Okay. Hey, Olive. The cloth of deposit applies to both men and women, non-relatives and relatives, those qualified and those disqualified, in court and out of court by his own mouth. But if he is enjoyed by others, he is not liable unless he denies it in court, and these are the words of the man. But the comments say whether by his own mouth or whether it's enjoyed by others, once he denies it, he is liable. He is liable for a willful transgression of the oath, as well as the inadvertent transgression coupled with a willful denial of the deposit. But he is not liable for its inadvertent transgression. Now, what is he liable for? It's willful transgression. A guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels. What is the case of the oath of deposit? If someone said, give me my deposit that I have in your possession, and he replied, I swear that you have nothing in my possession, or he replied, you have nothing in my possession, to which the other said, I adore you, and he said, Amen, he is liable. But if he adored him 5 times, either in court or out of court, and he denied it, he is liable for each one. And Shimon says, what is the reason? Because he can retract and confess. If five people were pressing claims against him, and he said to him, give us all the deposits that we have in your possession, to which he replied, I swear that you have nothing in my possession, he is liable only once. But if he replied, I swear that you have nothing in my possession, nor you, he is liable for each one. Reb Eliezer says, not unless he says, I swear at the end. Reb Shimon says, not unless he says, I swear to each one. If someone said to him, give me the deposit, the loan, the stolen article, and the lost article that I have in your possession, and he replied, I swear that you have nothing in my possession, he is liable only once. But if he replied, I swear that you have in my possession neither a deposit, a loan, a stolen article, or a lost article, he is liable for each one. If someone said to give me the wheat, barley, spelt that I have in your possession, he replied, I swear that you have nothing in my possession, he is liable only once. But if he replied, I swear that you have nothing in you have in my possession near the wheat, barley, or spelt, he is liable for each one. And Reb Meir says, even if he says a wheat, a barley, and a spelt, he is liable for each one.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
good.
it. And I'm gonna run.
Great. Have a great day. I will
You
see you
too. Have a
tomorrow.
lovely day. Bye.
Bye.